Howdy y'all, this is Dwight and welcome back to part 2 of how I make a slip joint from a tracing. I'm going to go ahead and just pick right up where we left off in the previous video. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to be drilling my pivot hole, my back spring holes, and the pivot and the end liner hole. So I got me a 1, 2, 3 block here, and I'm just going to use that kind of as a bench anvil and get my paper pattern lined back up, and all I'm going to do is just center punch right through the paper. And just like that, I have a center punch mark. I'm going to go ahead and center punch the rest of my parts and drill the holes. Okay, I have all my holes drilled in my blade and back spring and my liners. I went ahead and put pins in both my liners to keep them centered with each other. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the belt grinder and shape these down really close to where the scribe line is along the spine and the butt end there. And I'll probably go ahead and shape the pivot area reasonably decent as well. But I'm going to keep the inside part here rather proud of my scribe line, because I will shape that later on whenever I know for certain my blade fitment is where I want it. So I'll be back whenever I have these liners shaped. I have my liners shaped where I want them at this point. I'll lay my pattern here on it, that way you can get a good visual of how I left the inside of my liner proud. And that's quite a lot of material right there, but I want a decent amount of room for error if necessary. That gives me a higher chance of making a functioning pocket knife, though my goal is to have this trimmed back down as close to my pattern as possible. One other thing I left proud, which isn't a whole lot, is right there on the butt end. And the reason why I did that is just to give just a little bit more meat for the handle material to handle a pin being peened into the material. So that's why I went ahead and left that just a touch more proud than the pattern. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my blade, where I laid my pattern down on it and scribed along the cutting edge. And what I'm going to do next is shape the cutting edge of the blade. Well, I'm back from the grinder. I have the cutting edge portion of my blade ground down to my scribe line from my pattern. And before moving forward, I thought I better explain my purpose for going about things the way I am at this time. That way you might possibly get a better understanding of why I'm going through some of these specific steps for me. I'm going ahead and I'm going about putting this knife together as if my tracing was not that great. I did mention in the first video the gentleman that did this tracing did a very good job with it, so I don't have no complaints with it. But not all tracings are like that. So I'm attempting to show how I go about using a more poor tracing, but still being able to get a successful knife and pattern out of it. So I thought I'd throw that in real quick. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my blade and the back spring on my handle liner. That way I can see how things are fitting in that orientation. Okay, now since I have the cutting edge of my knife where I want it, I can bring the cutting edge down to my back spring, and instead of following my scribe line, I know there's already a gap here, so I can just clean this curve up And then on this portion of the back spring, I can come down to my scribe line. But I can make the butt end part of the back spring more of a steeper curve because the blade fits down in there. I'll give it just a little bit more of a cleaner fit. I mean, you can't really see on the inside of the knife, but I like making that clean if possible. Of course, everything is proud on the back side. Just giving a quick double check. Our back spring is just proud of the liner, even though I left the liner a hair bit prouder than the pattern. So we're good in that department. So what I plan on doing next is cleaning up the inside of the back spring. I'm going to go down to that scribe line and possibly just a hair past it to make plenty of room for my blade. And I'm just going to clean the inside of this curve up. I don't want to take very much material off at all. So, okay, got the inside of the back spring cleaned up. Of course, I'm just using a 36 grit belt. So let's put this back on our liner and see how we did. Oop, a pin fell out the back. There we go. Okay, so pressing the blade down in there, meeting the back spring, you can tell it's going to have plenty of room, and the contour is very similar to the tip of the knife. So, what I'm wanting to do next, because our back spring is hanging down real heavy, is I went ahead and I took my pattern and I scribed line along the bottom side of the tang and the half stop portion of the tang, and I'm going to ease this material down to those scribe lines because I know my pattern, it's going by a tracing, and I know it's bigger than it needs to be by a little bit anyway. So I'm going to get it closer to my scribe lines. I ain't going to get crazy with that though. So when I get back, oh yes, I'm also going to clean the walk portion of the back spring up. It don't need much. And just to give a quick example of how we varied away from our pattern, I didn't take that material out right there, but we're really close along all the rest of it, and that was just to make the blade fit just a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to clean the walk up and clean the tang up just a little bit. I have the blade setting in there. I'm liking the clearance I have along the back spring. Of course, I know once I put tension on it, it will raise up. Okay, so my next step is I'm going to come around and scribe a line along the butt end of my back spring, just enough to clean my rough cut up. I'm going to stay slightly proud of that scribe line because whenever I get my fitment in, that will move a little bit, and I want a little room for error. Now the second thing I am going to do, let me grab a 1, 2, 3 block here. Is the spine of the knife is proud of where the liner is. So I'm wanting to come down the spine of my liner. This can feel like it can need, need 3 hands sometimes. I'm going to clock my blade how I want it, which is just slightly down. and I'm going to attempt to scribe a line along the spine here. There we go. Okay, I'm satisfied with where we're at right now. Of course, as we can see, got a nice gap there around the butt end of the back spring, leaving it just a little bit proud of the liner there. Of course, we're really proud along the spine of the liner. And whenever we open the blade up, we are now very close to even. So we're right at even with the spine of the liner. So the spine of the blade is right where we want it. And I went ahead and I cleaned the clip portion up. So at this point, I am happy enough with where I'm at. So I'm going to go ahead and end the video at this point, because the next step I'm wanting to do is to heat treat the blade in the back spring. So that's what will be happening hopefully sometime this weekend. It makes a good stopping point. I do appreciate everyone that's following along on this series of how to make a slip joint from a tracing. Till the next video, y'all take care.